Yeah, so just before we get started, I can just read out the emergency evacuations procedures for council chambers. So just in the event of an emergency, everybody must evacuate through the nearest safety exit. Those seated in the gallery can take direction from security to evaluate. Council, you can take direction from myself on how to evacuate the space safely. After evacuating the meeting room, please do proceed down a stairwell and take the stairs to ground level. Evacuate the building through the doors marked emergency exit and go to the muster point. Don't take the elevator and please don't walk through the city room at City Hall. Anybody with limited mobility, if you can identify yourself either to myself or security. Please note that as a fire warden, I will be your fire warden for today's meetings. Happy to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. It is 9:31 on April 30th. I will call this meeting to order as the mayor is away on city business. So I'll start with the land acknowledgement. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge that we meet on the traditional land of Treaty 6 territory in the Métis homeland, and acknowledge the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory for centuries, such as Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Nakota Sioux, as well as Métis and Inuit, and now settlers from around the world. Let's start with a roll call. Councillor Wright.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Principe.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Stevenson.
Good morning.
Thank you. Oh, wonderful. Good morning. Councillor Paquette.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Tang is, I believe, away on city, well, I know she's away on city business, as is Mayor Sohi, which is why you're stuck with me. Councillor Hamilton.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Rutherford.
Morning.
Good morning. Councillor Salvador.
Good morning.
Ooh, that was almost, that was too close to Stevenson almost. Councillor Cartmel.
Good morning.
Councillor Rice.
Good morning.
And Councillor Jans.
Good morning.
Oh, I'm embarrassed of myself. Adoption of the agenda. I'll take a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll move that the April 30th, 2024 City Council regular meeting agenda be adopted with the following changes. The addition of item 6.1, which is the 2024 property tax supplementary property tax bylaw, 6.2 bylaw 20707, 2024 City of Edmonton Belvedere Community Revitalization Levy Rate and Supplementary Levy Rate bylaw, 6.3 bylaw 20708, 2024 City of Edmonton Quarters Downtown Community Revitalization Levy Rate and Supplementary Levy Rate bylaw. And item 6.4, bylaw 20709, 2024, City of Edmonton Capital City Downtown Community Revitalization Rate and Supplementary Levy Rate bylaw.
Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Ooh, there were 4 people. I think I heard Councillor Rutherford first, so I'm going to go with Councillor Rutherford. Please vote.
Yes.
Thanks, Councillor Rice. Just waiting for one more vote.
I'm also a yes.
Thank you. We have all the vote.
Thank you. Please display the vote. And that is carried. Protocol items. I don't believe we have any today. No? Then let's go next to selection of item for debates. I'm going to wait a second, and I think there might be someone who wants to select it. Councillor Principe?
Thank you, Chair Knack. I would like to select item 6.1, please.
6.1. Thank you. I'm not seeing anyone else on the board. So with no one else on the board for any of the other items, I'll take or I guess it's going to be bylaws. So it's, what we'll do is it's reports not selected for debate, because we'll technically do the bylaws after request to speak. So, a request to speak, speaking of, there is a person registered to speak. They had registered in person. I don't see them either in person or online, and typically has not been our practice at council meetings to hear from speakers. And so unless there's someone that clicks on for a motion to make that motion, which I'm not seeing, and being that they're not here either, we will just continue forth on to Time specific, there will only be one item, which will be 6.1, to Councillor Cartmel to vote on bylaws not selected for debate.
Thank you, Councillor Knack. I'll move first reading of items 6.2, 6.3, and 6.4.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Paquette. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Thank you. Please display the vote. That is carried. Councillor Cartmel.
Councillor Knack, I'll move second reading of items 6.2, 6.3, 6.4.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Paquette. Please vote on second reading.
We have all the votes.
Thank you. Please display the vote. That is carried. Councillor Cartmel.
Councillor Knack, I'll move consideration of third reading of items 6.2, 6.3, and 6.4.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Paquette. Names, that's a good start. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Thank you. Please display the vote. That is carried. And Councillor Cartmel.
Councillor Knack, I'll move third and final reading of Bylaw 20707, Bylaw 20708, and Bylaw 20709.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Paquette. Please vote on the third and final reading.
We have all the votes.
Thank you. Please display the vote. And that is carried. Wonderful. So that means we are done everything except item 6.1. So we will turn it over to administration if you have any opening comments.
Good morning, Chair and Council. We do not have a presentation for you, but we are here to answer any questions you might have on the item.
Wonderful. Well, this was selected by Councillor Principe, so we'll go to Councillor Principe.
Thank you, Councillor Knack. Sorry, I would have, oh, now
It's all good.
I can click in. Yeah, sorry, it wasn't allowing me to. Thank you. So I just wanted to ask about the other residential subclass. I know that that was an amendment or a motion that passed prior. And I know it will not have an impact on the tax levy, correct?
That's right. It's a redistributive effect.
Okay, however,
Sorry, point of order. We are at council, so should there be, before questions, should there be some sort of,
I guess because
oh,
it's...
motion on the
Yeah, I
floor.
guess you can still move first reading and then, yeah. So if yes, we could do that.
I just want to be procedurally
Yeah,
sound.
that's
with
fine.
our-
Yeah, would you...
We're not at committee, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. Would you be willing to move it, Councillor Rutherford, or just since you correctly called the point of order?
sure, I
Thank
move
you.
first reading.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Councillor Cartmel, thank you. Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Principe, continue.
yes, thank you. However, the residential will have a greater impact now with the potential, or not potential, but with the phase out of the other residential, correct?
By residential, do you mean the general residential class?
Correct,
Yes, it will.
yeah. And then the other residential will see a decrease effect.
Yes, so amongst your residential subclasses, you will see the general residential increasing, the derelict subclass increasing, and the other residential decreasing.
Okay, so I would like to make an amendment to this bylaw to remove the phase out of the other residential subclass.
So before I accept that, I need to double check with the clerks because when did we make that decision? If it's been within a year, would it be permitted?
Well, so this is where I'm going to just need to take a quick pause
Sure.
because whether council made a decision at a council meeting to pass a motion, this is a bylaw.
So we could potentially.
So
Yep.
I would like to understand, I don't have anything in writing, I have nothing prepared, so I would want to talk both with legal and I'd want to talk to our colleagues behind me. So can you just finish your thought and then just give me a couple minutes to
Perfect,
chat
yeah,
with
so if
them?
you have any other questions, let's do that, and then maybe we'll take just a 2 or 3 minute recess so we can confirm. But do you have any other questions, Councillor Principe?
I do not at this time. I don't know if others have.
I don't see anyone else on the board, so if it's okay, no, maybe we might have questions from Councillor Rice. So let's go to questions from Councillor Rice, recognizing we don't have any amendments on the floor yet, so once the questions are done, then we'll take a couple minutes and folks can talk amongst each other.
So the council passed the motion 7-6 on February 22nd, 2023. Specific talk about the other residential tax rates. So my question is, because right now, and when we decided the tax rate is based on how we collect tax based on the subclass assessment classes, but for the residential assessment classes, it's divided to 3 types of subclasses. And right now, and in the proposed bylaws, if council implements that adjustment, just passed in February, to the tax rate assessment subclass. So as proposed in bylaws Schedule A, this bylaw. So what will the percentage tax rate increase be, and for the residential subclass for the 2024 taxation year?
So thank you for the question, Councillor Rice. I think the whole of council needs to be aware that this entire recalculation will need to happen again. And also this has an effect on the community revitalization bylaws, which have already been passed. Because essentially what we're doing here is changing the proportionate representation within the residential tax group. So it's quite a complex calculation, and we would need to go away and redo it.
So I understand there's a complex there, and then, but the what I heard from Councillor Principe talk about the amendment will not impact the total tax levy, right? The total tax rate is still same, and the budget of the tax rate 8.9% still the same. The only thing, and that I heard from Karen Principe, is talk about how we allocate it, how we calculate 3 types of subclass, how we collect different amount from this. So right now we need to make a decision for the 3 subclass group and what's the tax rate for them.
Not exactly. What you would be looking to do is to ask us to go away to recalculate the distribution amongst all of the subclasses of residential in every part of our city, including the 3 CRLs. The other thing I would mention is that our our housing accelerator funding is tied to the elimination of this tax rate over 5 years. So council should be thinking a little about whether that impact is something they want to contemplate.
So I want to repeat one more time my question. I heard my question may not be well received here. So the question here is the total tax levy we're still going to collect because we passed the budget that is needed. We need that tax levy. And also for the 8.9% will not be changed. And then is about how we collect from 3 types of subclass. And that I know is complicated. There are many factors could be impacted mathematically. And then, but the principle here is if we implement the adjustment and for the 15% for the other residential down to 12%, does that mean, and in the report it said, the residential tax rate will be increased 0.4%. So can you tell me what the percentage could be for the residential that is actually the majority of our tax levy?
Understood. Councillor, no, I cannot tell you that. That is a calculation we would need to go away and perform.
And so is that fair to say based on the reports provided here, the bylaw provided here says a 0.4% increase. Does that mean is 0.4 increase plus 8.9 is 9.3%?
I'm sorry, I'm not following your math in the moment.
It's a very clear indicated in the reports, in the bylaw reports presented here today. I have papers.
I will
Sorry,
ask my colleague Anton Zabo, who
In the
Yes,
report.
sorry, yeah, unless you have an answer, Mr. Zabo, which you can do, we will need to do a second round. Mr. Zabo, do you want to try to answer that
Just very
first?
quickly answer, Councillor. So yes, you're correct. So there's a 0.4 that we've indicated there is relating to the phase out. So that would take you down to 0.4% less. The difference that is still between the 8.9 and what you see there is going to relate to assessment shifting between residential and other residential. So there is just a reflection of the differential between how those assessments are generally trending this year that are going to show that differential. So we show that pie and how the pie slices change over time based on assessment value. It's the exact same thing when it comes to residential and other residential. This year residential is a little higher. So regardless of getting rid of the other residential phase out, there is still going to be a component of an increase related to assessment shifting.
Okay, so, sorry, just since you're out of time, yeah. Absolutely. So what we'll do, because procedurally this would technically be allowed, but because council could, since the bylaws, although approve the other three, it could also be reconsidered if by chance there was an amendment in a motion. So procedurally it would be technically allowed. So what I'd like to do is allow a 5-minute recess for the potential mover to talk with clerks and legal to figure out what wording would look like so that we're making sure we're all talking about something appropriately. Maybe we need 10. Yeah, it's probably a wise. Let's take 10 minutes.
Point of order.
Yes.
Could the chair clarify what is the deadline by which this bylaw needs to be passed?
Today.
So I'm just trying to understand if the.
Let's not debate a hypothetical yet.
No,
Because
I'm not debating it. I'm just trying to understand if it's truly in order, because if you're asking administration to pass a bylaw, but it's going to be unfeasible for them to meet the deadline of today, is that truly in order?
I don't have a motion yet to rule it in order or out of order at this point. So at the moment, there's nothing to rule one way or another. So that's why we need a recess to let the potential movers see if there's a motion they would like to make. If they want to, it would be a very valid question at that point as to whether our city staff would have enough time to complete that work. So I'd like to take 10 minutes to see if that can happen. So let's take a recess and we'll come back at, we'll just round it right up to 10 a.m. Let's take till 10 a.m.
Are you voting, or is that with unanimous
This
consent?
is unanimous consent on a recess. Or not? I mean, yes. Okay, thank you. That will make it easier so that we can verify. Thank you. We're on recess until 10 a.m. I'm going to go back to Councillor Principe to see what she would like to do on this, and then we can make a ruling either way. So.
Yes, I would like to move that bylaw 20706 be referred back to administration to remove the phase out of the other residential subclass, prepare the necessary policy adjustment, and identify any other unintended consequences, and return to a special city council meeting to be called by the chair.
Second.
So before I accept this, I want to check, because I understood and I want to make sure from administration, what does this mean in terms of when our legal requirement is to send out notices, and if a referral were approved, do you have enough time to actually accomplish what you need to legally?
I do know that Mr. Ashmore from Legal Services is online, so I might ask him to speak to the legalities. I can say from the operational perspective that this will absolutely jeopardize our ability to collect taxes by our June 30th deadline.
Okay. Mr. Ashmore, do you have any other comments before I make a ruling on this?
Yeah, so there's a couple of items, and so on the notice itself, there are a number of dates, including the mail-out date, the complaint deadline date, and something called a notice of assessment date. The 3 dates all have to line up. So if we are unable to mail by the mailing date as a result of needing to reprint or something along that lines, then you have a problem with your notices, which effectively means you need to resend them out. And that would obviously have the cost of reprinting them. So my understanding right now is that the deadline for the complaints is June 30th. And that would mean the mail date would be May 31st. So those are the dates that you're dealing with in terms of the necessity. How long it takes to print, that would be from Ms. Watt and her team.
Okay, thank you. So what I heard just as a last confirmation is that in terms of practically speaking, from administration's perspective, you do not, am I correct at hearing that you do not believe this would provide you with sufficient time to complete the work you're required to do?
I'm sorry, this does not give us enough time to complete the work.
I needed to ask, so then because as I make the ruling, one of the requirements of a ruling of an in-order motion is that it has to be doable. It is not, I've heard that it is not doable by administration, so I'm going to rule this motion out of order. Anyone is welcome to challenge the chair, just to be very clear. We can do that, but I just wanted to state why that I'm ruling that out of order. So.
Sorry, Councillor, just one quick correction from my perspective. The dates, I was thinking on assessment notices, we're dealing with the tax notice here. Yeah. So there's actually 2 dates. There's the date that the taxes are due and the mailing date that's on the notice. So they need to line up. The date the taxes are due is June 30th and the date of the mailing is May 31st.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll leave that, I'm going to make that ruling that it is out of order. Again, I'll give a moment if anyone wishes to challenge that ruling.
So what's the process to challenge?
So
I just challenge and then we have to vote.
Correct.
Because I never do this first time, and I just want to.
Yeah, you can challenge. You can just say you're challenging the ruling of the chair. You just have to say it once you have the floor.
And so then the council has to vote my challenge, or?
That's correct.
Okay, so before I challenge, and then Mr.
Sorry,
Mayor.
can we just clarify that Councillor Rice has the floor?
Yeah, can you click on just to be a...
Okay, I will click. Yeah. And before I do that, I have a quick question. So if you allow me to ask a question?
Yes.
Allow?
It's an imperfect setup because we're technically debating the potential of you challenging, but I would allow one question to, yeah, please.
I cannot click on.
Go ahead, you're on. Yeah, I show you on the board, so.
So what I heard the reason, and I think that is really responsible reason. I appreciate the legal provide that, and we need to collect tax levy. And then, so my question, instead of the dates of the some delayed, and my question is, is there any potential improvements and in the future and between the timeline and the budget approve and the tax rates?
Sorry, Madam Clerk, yeah, you were.
Yeah, so just,
Okay,
let's,
sorry.
so there's a motion on the floor.
yeah.
There was an amendment to that, well, a referral motion back, that was not accepted by the chair. So if there's questions, are those questions related to the decision of the chair, or are those questions related to the motion on the floor? I'm just not following.
Motion related to, okay, it's a.
So
chair-
I feel like the question you're trying to
Yeah.
ask is dependent upon me accepting the motion to debate. So if, it is a valid question if that motion is on the floor. Right now, the motion is not on the floor as I've ruled it out of order. So really the only thing that we are discussing right now is whether you want to have the ability to debate that motion. So if you would like to ask that question and you feel that is important to you, then I would say your best step would be to challenge the chair, to state that you want to challenge the chair, and that's fine. That's, again, perfectly valid democratic process here. Then we would vote on whether the ruling is upheld, and if it is overturned, you would be able to ask that question.
Okay, so this is my first time doing, and then I'm going to challenge the chair.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so the process here, and what I do need help with. Oh,
It's a third, so we don't debate it, it's just to kind of move things along.
Yeah.
So now there's been a challenge, so the question is that you keep the chair, you don't give the chair up, and is the question to the assembly is the decision of the chair upheld?
That's right.
As long as 1/3 of those present agree with your decision is upheld. Even if it is not upheld, I would still bring to question the validity of the motion because the action cannot be completed, but that's the second thing.
okay. So then we move immediately to a vote. This is not a debatable
Okay, that's fine.
motion. So I've heard the challenge. We will vote. Please vote on the
So no second needed?
No, this is
No.
not a motion, this is a challenge.
correct.
Okay.
So yeah, please go ahead and vote.
And point of order, so if we support the ruling of the chair, we vote
In,
yes or no?
you can vote however you want. The question is the ruling of the chair upheld? Do you agree with the decision that Councillor Knack has made as the chair or not? If you agree with him, vote yes. If you disagree with him, vote no.
Point of
Thank you.
order, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So I saw the mover does not want me challenge your decision.
That's not the process, Councillor
Okay.
Rice. You have called
yeah.
a challenge.
At this point, we do need to
We're
vote.
not debating this.
Yeah, at this point, we do, the
I-
challenge is, so I'm going to just say the challenge has been made, so all we need to do is vote. If you want to uphold the ruling, vote yes. Otherwise, vote no, and again, no problem. That's how we do that, so. So to uphold the ruling, is it, so one more time, just as we're voting? uphill?
So the vote is live. So the question
Yes.
is the decision of the chair upheld? The answer is yes or no. Thank you, Councillor Rutherford. We're just waiting for one more vote.
It never stays.
I'm a yes.
Thank you so much. So just because E-Scribe is challenging right now, that the decision of the chair is upheld 9-2.
Thank you very much. So therefore, now where we're at here is we have the motion on the floor that was originally made by Councillor Rutherford. We can still do questions if there are any questions. So if you have any additional questions, please sign up on the board for questions on the bylaw. Do you have more questions? No, that's okay. Yeah, absolutely, no problem. I'm just confirming there's, oh, yes, so I do need a motion for another round of questions.
I'll move second round or third or next round.
Next round, yeah. I'll second that. Please vote on another round.
No.
Thank you, Councillor Rutherford.
We have all the votes.
Thank you. Please display the vote. And that is defeated, so there are no additional rounds of questions on this item. So we will move next to speaking to the item. We have first reading on the floor, so this would be an appropriate time that if anyone wished to speak to this item, please click on. And Councillor Rice, do you want to speak to that? I don't know if that was the remnant from the previous or if you...
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I can speak that, even though I still have many questions, but I respect the process and not to ask many questions. So I know we passed the budget 1 week ago, or not 1 week, 1 week ago, yes, last Tuesday. So even though I know, and then many of members of council may not like this tax increase or budget that is publicly stated, but at the same time, I recognize that a tax increase is necessary and to avoid having the unbalanced budget, which according to the Municipal Government Act is not allowed. So, but I feel if you look at, I want to mention the 2 points here. If you look at the tax bylaw we passed in 2023, and if that's budgeted tax revenue is 1.9 billion, and then look at the tax bylaw in front of us is 2.14 billion. The mathematically, and if you do the calculation, the actual tax increase is not 8.9%, is 11.005%. So that I saw the headlot agree, and from state administration that is pretty high. Even though I want to confirm, I asked a question earlier, but I didn't get opportunity. But right now I confirmed from you, you nodded the heads. The tax actually increased compared to 2023 is 11.05%. So right now, and then proposed this bylaw in front of us, their residential, as you can see in the Schedule A, the table, the residential tax levy we're going to collect is majority of portion of this tax levy we're going to collect. However, and if we pass this tax bylaw, that means I just use the exact wording, and in the report, in the bylaw report provided here, I'm going to read this to make sure, so I said is absolutely correct. In 2024, I will read this. Beginning in 2024, the other residential subclass is being phased out over the next 5 years. The other residential subclass previously paid a 15% higher tax rate than residential properties such as single detached houses. Following passage of this bylaw, this premium, sorry for my English, and will decrease to 12%. The premium will continue to decrease by 3% each year between 2025 to 2027 until it is eliminated in 2028. In 2024, this shifting results in an increased tax impact to residential properties of about 0.4% and to decrease the tax impact to other residential property of about 2.5%. So I feel it would be too much pressure on the residential taxation assessment subclass, and if their tax rate increase and the higher rate than other type and give the majority of the taxation is residential. So as such, I cannot support the residential taxation assessment subclass having the relatively high tax rates increase than the other residential taxation subclass at this time. However, I really hope my colleagues' Councillor Principe's motion could be debated and give our opportunity to recalculate the tax rate between the three subclasses, but without change any tax levy, without change total
Thank you.
tax
That's
we
your
are
time.
collecting.
Sorry.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Councillor Principe is next.
Thank you, Councillor Knack, sorry. I just have a lot of thoughts running through my head, and this is really tough. I didn't realize the conversation was going to go, I didn't realize it was going to be so in-depth, and I was hoping the conversation wouldn't, or I was hoping that it would have had, we would have had a better outcome or a more desired outcome. And this is very difficult because I don't want to vote no on this. I was hoping that there could be an amendment. However, I will, with the chair's acceptance, bring forward a subsequent motion. And as it stands at this point, I feel I can't support the bylaw as it's stated. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing anyone else on the board beyond Councillor Rutherford to close. Councillor Rutherford, please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't planning on speaking to this because this was a procedural item today that we had debated last week, and I asked one of my colleagues why this wasn't a motion that was put on the floor last week, and they said, oh, we're just talking about increase. But when we're talking about anything that's affecting people's residential or businesses' property taxes, it's all fair game, and it could have absolutely been done as a debate last week, even though I would contend we debated it in February 2023. I was a no vote at that time. But this is again an example where I am still going to support this bylaw. I am absolutely going to support this bylaw. If we're going to just say because I voted no to something before, it's going to give me reason to vote no to every subsequent decision that comes up and to not collectively own our decisions as a council, that is extremely infuriating. I have talked last week about how I didn't support police funding because I didn't think we were getting a fair deal for Edmontonians with that funding formula. Not because I don't think police deserve more money. I just thought that there was some very big concerns for me with that formula. But yet I have still consistently supported the budget. And so it is, I appreciate the point. I didn't support the tax subclass. I didn't want to see this burden shift. But I also said no to a lot of things. I think about 0.2% that was added to the tax levy just last week. And the councillors that are going to vote no today said yes to it. And now they're saying, but this 4.4% shift is problematic. So I don't mean to call people out, but this looks sloppy. This is embarrassing to us as a council. And quite frankly, it feels like a little bit of a political shell game. And I don't mean that in a nefarious way, but it's like, I have been on the phone. I had, this last week, I have an area that I represent that has a lot of low-income seniors, a lot. I have personally called back every single individual that called my office, and I have sat on the phone and listened to their hardships. And I have told them about the provincial program, and I have told them about how we have no ability to be able to distinguish between property owners that have wealth or financial means to pay taxes and those that don't. And yet, I still said, but I still support the budget because I still support democracy and I still support council's collective decision-making. And so I really really encourage my colleagues to think about, is this one thing enough for you to vote no to everything that you're getting in this, and understanding that it's about, this yes vote is a vote for financial stability for this organization. It's about supporting the labor ratifications that we all agreed to, we voted unanimously on. And that while we debated this, and it was a split vote a year ago, you know, there was even a referral back motion that Councillor Paquette was so kind to remind us that we even tried to refer this back for further information rather than making that decision at the time. Let alone the fact that now, because we made that decision a year ago, there is housing funding on the table that is at risk. So the time to make and reconsider decisions, in my mind, is past, especially on the tax subclass, because we are in a housing emergency right now as a city. We need more purpose-built rentals, and we need funding from all orders of government and from anybody, nonprofits that are willing to build housing to meet the demand that we have in our city. So I really encourage my colleagues to consider supporting this bylaw and staying united like we were last week, because I think it's an important message to send to Edmontonians that this, at this point, even though we don't all collectively agree with every decision that led to where we are today, we are here, and this is what's the best interest of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Thank you. Please display the vote. That is carried 9-2. Councillor Rutherford?
Yeah, I'll move second reading.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Second?
Councillor Stevenson? Thank you. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Thank you. Please display the vote. And that is carried 9-2. Councillor Rutherford?
I'll move consideration of third reading.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Cartmel. Please vote for consideration.
We have all the votes.
Thank you. Please display the vote. That is carried. And Councillor Rutherford?
I will move third reading, third and final reading of bylaw 20706.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Cartmel. Please vote on third and final reading.
We have all the votes.
Thank you. Please display the vote. And that is carried 9-2. And I can go back to Councillor Principe for a subsequent motion.
Thank you, Councillor Knack. Yes, I would like to make a subsequent that administration provide a report to phase out other residential subclass starting in 2025, prepare the necessary policy changes, and identify any other unintended consequences, and return to a city council meeting. The due date
To be determined.
to be determined.
Do I have a seconder?
Second?
Seconded by Councillor Rice. Thank you. I'll accept that motion. It is in order. And so we'll move to questions on the motion. Councillor Stevenson's on the board. Please go ahead.
Sorry, mainly to speak, but maybe just to the mover to clarify. This says to provide a report to phase out. Do you mean to provide a report on the phase out of other residential?
No, it's a report to phase out, but also to identify, after discussion with administration, it was suggested that there may be other unintended consequences. So I would like to have that full information, or maybe more compile the information.
But am I understanding your intent is for a report on the reversal of phasing out?
Correct.
Okay, so I think then we maybe need to clarify that wording, because it says a report to
Oh,
phase
yes,
out.
thank you. You're right. A report to not phase out. Wow, thank you, Councillor Stevens.
I assume that was friendly?
Yeah, I think that can be
Yes.
considered friendly, as that was the original intent with the wording. So, yeah, we'll accept that as friendly.
And thank you, I'll just speak.
Let me just one moment to make sure. Is there anyone else with questions? Not seeing anyone on the board. So, Councillor Stevenson, would you? Oh, my goodness, sorry. I just didn't see anyone on the board. My apologies. Is this for questions? Okay, Councillor Rice, go ahead.
My apologies, my
That's
computer
okay.
is
No.
really slow and
No
come
problem.
out. So the question, and then I recalled, and when we did the first policy change, and back to February 2023, so we have the years attached. So the question, we have 5 years, 3 years, the different options city administration provided. So right now, and for this motion and to the mover, so do you mean that remove that 5 years policy that was passed last year? Is that
Correct, yeah.
is that your
Change the
intention?
direction of the policy, yeah.
So that
To
means
not phase out.
not phase out, just to keep as it is.
Keep the other residential
Okay.
subclass.
Subclass. So that means that by law we passed last year, and we have that 3 subclass, and in that.
Correct.
In residential. So if that is the case, my next question to administration. So if this motion to keep the other residential subclass, does that mean the 15% tax rate will be continued for those subclass? And I should say only one subclass is other residential subclass.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Rice. The way I read this motion, we're coming back to you with a report on not phasing out according to the previous direction, and Council will make a decision at that point what it wants us to do with other residential. And I wouldn't predict ahead of that discussion what the direction would be.
Okay.
What I know at the moment is that we have a 12% differential, and we would be looking with this report to get direction on what council would like us to do following that.
Okay, so no matter is 12% or 15%, this calculation is not based on council's votes, it's based on the calculation from administration, right?
We calculate according to what council directs us to do.
So that 15% or 12%, and for the other residential subclass rate, that is, I did not see that information in any document, and say we vote for that.
That was the decision you made in February of 2023.
The table, I have that report here. The table actually is not 15%. This is why I'm a little bit confused. But I can follow up with you offline, and then to show you the report I have here is not the same tax rates, and we're talking about here, the table we passed, and for that. Because it's 0.3, it actually is not 0.4% increase, and for the residential. Yeah,
To be clear, Councillor, the rate, this is where we do actually do the calculation according to the rate, not the levy and not the overall tax. The rate is 12% higher.
Okay.
So, Councillor, I think I know what you're speaking to.
Yeah.
You're speaking to the report that was in February 2023.
Yes.
At that time, it was an estimate. We can't tell you the exact impact 2 years out of what it was going to
Okay.
be. So
That-
this
that
year,
makes
the
sense.
impact
Yeah.
is slightly different. And
Yes.
there's rounding there as well, so
Yes.
it's, a little
Okay.
closer.
Okay, that makes sense. So the next question is provided the report back is just to gather some informations. And because when we passed last time, 726, I still recall some comments from my colleagues talk about we don't have enough information to determine any if there is any intended consequences. So that is why the vote is so close. So this will provide some information back to us, right?
Yes, this will provide information back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. That's my question.
Thank you very much. I don't see anyone else on the board for questions, so we'll move to speaking to the motion, and I'll let the board continue. Councillor Paquette?
Oh, thank you, Councillor Knack. So we had this conversation. I had already made a motion to refer this back for more information. That motion failed. On this issue, I also challenged the chair, and that failed as well. So here we are, and moving ahead. And now, as I understand it, we also have funding tied to some of these decisions that equal a pretty substantial amount. So while I would love to support this, I just feel like it is, we keep coming back to the same thing, and it's time to put this to rest. We're already moving forward this year. I don't see the sense in a sudden potential course reversal. And the reason is that it does not provide stability to those who would be building essentially housing for people who need it, housing for rentals and things like that. So there was a reason council went ahead with this. I was not 100% comfortable with it at the time. I'm still not 100% comfortable with it, but I am more uncomfortable with the idea of introducing a lot of instability into the marketplace due to council decisions going back and forth or not being solid. And even this motion, unfortunately, would signal a sense of trepidation. And so for that reason, I can't support this, even though I would love to support my colleague. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the conversation this morning, and I know that these conversations come from, I think, the challenge that we're all feeling, which is knowing that our tax increase is going to impact Edmontonians. It's a hard weight to carry, and I know that each of us takes that very seriously. And I appreciate the desire to look at, how we're relieving pressure between different groups. I won't be able to support this motion, though, and I want to remind my colleagues that the other residential tax subclass, by reversing our decision to phase that out, we would be maintaining the tax pressure on some of the most marginalized Edmontonians in Edmonton. So our recent housing needs assessment showed that renters are 4 times as likely as homeowners to be in core housing need, with 1 in 4 renter households, 4 times as likely as homeowners to be in need, with 1 in 4 renter households living in core housing need. That includes 41% of seniors' rental households. It's fair, there's not a direct line. We can't directly control those rents, but phasing out the other residential land use class does help to control how we distribute tax contributions amongst Edmontonians. And I appreciate that some of my colleagues were skeptical of this decision at the time. I think what we can look to for outside validation of this approach is the Housing Accelerator Fund. This is one of the things at a national level that is recognized to help with the overall affordability of housing in a market, particularly in the rental market. As mentioned previously, this is part of why we have been provided with $175 million, because we're taking these progressive steps to create housing affordability in our entire community. So I would strongly encourage my colleagues to not support this motion and appreciate where it's coming from. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. And Councillor Stevenson, if you don't mind, can you take the chair?
I have the chair.
Thank you very much. Just a few comments, and I really appreciate what Councillor Stevenson just shared and Councillor Paquette. I thought I would just briefly comment on it because I normally love to support reports for information. That's usually my goal, but I actually think this is one I can't support for some of the reasons we already heard. So I just wanted to share, I mean, this is something that I have no problem with us, one councillor who wanted to revisit a decision, that's perfectly valid. It's been a year, this is a valid motion, I think that's great, I have no problem with that. It was very much a split vote with I think the classic voting block of Paquette, Sohi, Jans, Rice, Rutherford, and Principe. That's a joke for anyone who doesn't watch politics normally, and that there aren't real voting blocks in municipal politics. And so I share that, though, because it was an interesting debate. There were people who might not always be, you would think, vote with each other, had decided to vote because they felt strongly about it. We had a thorough discussion, and at the end of the day, it was a split vote. And this is one that, in part because of what we heard from Councillor Stevenson, in part of what we've heard from our administration around how this is tied to other funding sources, I don't want to create the uncertainty similar to Councillor Paquette, as he referenced in his closing comments, which is that, when there are tight votes, sometimes you need to be willing to reconsider. I think we've had enough at this point here, and so with the greatest of respect to my colleague who wanted to have this discussion again, I can't support receiving this for receiving a report, even though I know there's that desire, but I'd like to make sure that we have some certainty going forward. So, thank you. I'll take the chair back.
I've returned the chair.
Thank you. Before I go to Councillor Principe, let's go to Councillor Rice, please.
I know the budget time is always very intense time, and for us to bring a different perspective from what we heard or what we represent and from our constituents. So we talk about the responsibilities as a leader and to prove our budgets and also to prove the tax increase. I want to say I really impressed and then also appreciate and then all my colleagues and every member and then in this council really take this responsibility to do the carefully thinking, carefully consideration, and for how our city's financial situation should be budgeted and how the budgeted tax revenue and should be collected. So I want to say thank you, Councillor Principe, and to brought the two motions today and for us to have this great conversation. I know it's not easy and it needs a lot of encouragement, and thank you for that. But I do say, and then I take this really seriously. I want to support our budgets. I want to support our budget tax levy to be collected in time, and then to really have that funding source for us to continually provide the services our Edmontonians needed. At the same time, and then the only reason I voted no and to the tax bylaw and then results to this subsequent motion put on the floor is about the allocation and between three subclass under residential assessment class value. And because we did say, and from last year, even though we have that passed very closely, and I appreciate the Councillor Paquette mentioned you challenged, and then your motion did not pass, and then I never did challenge this is first time. That is why I still have question how to do that process. But this is also beauty of the democracy and process, and we have that privilege to do it. However, and then, like I said, the only reason I voted no for that, because I asked myself, I want to make sure our budget be passed. I want to make sure our budgeted tax levy be collected. And then, however, the calculation and between the three subclass, I do have the concern for that. And from what I heard, and also from the reports, and what we heard, and we have majority of Edmontonians and express the concern and how we decrease other residential sub-tax rate to increase the burden to the residential tax rate to 9.3%. And specifically gave the factor here and the majority of our budget tax levy from residential tax rate based on this calculation. So I just want challenge that allocation approach at this moment. I don't think at this moment that approach, how we calculate and between subclass, and really reflect and what Edmontonians want, and based on the survey council city already did, and from last year. So this motion could provide more information and with further engagement with our Edmontonians, really listen to them, what they feel about their tax to be collected and their tax to be used for us to provide that services in the way, and most Edmontonians expect that efficiency and cost saving. So I think this motion could provide some opportunity and information back to us, and to have that conversation, to have more engagement with our Edmontonians and how they feel about the taxes our city collected and used and from them. So I encourage my colleagues to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Principe to close.
Thank you, Chair Knack. So one of the things I recall us discussing was the creation of the other residential subclass. And as I recall, because of the tax relief that owners of rental properties get, was that, I'm sorry, I'm not asking questions. I do believe that was part of the reason why that other residential subclass was created. And still, I do believe that owners do get a tax relief on rentals. And until there's, and that's why I would like to see a report, to see if there is a reason that other residential should be phased out, and comparing it to other things such as what I just mentioned. And that's why I would like to see a report. I understand if my colleagues don't want to support the phase out, and who knows, if this passes and I get the report back, I may not support the phase out as well. But I would like to have that information in order to make that decision. So that's why I would like to see a report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and please vote.
We have all the votes.
Thank you. Please display the votes. And that is defeated in a 2-9 vote. So remaining items, we have no private reports, we have no motions pending. We do need to have a motion without customary notice, so someone is going to make a motion to let someone else make a motion.
Yes, thank you. I would like to move that Councillor Salvador be allowed to make a motion without customary motion notice.
Perfect.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Cartmel. And please vote.
Thank you. We have all the votes.
Thank you. Please display the votes. That is carried. Councillor Salvador.
Thank you. I'll move that the May 8th, 2024 City Council non-regular item 5.1, the Alberta Municipalities Protocol Meeting with Council verbal report be changed from time specific from 10:30 to 11 a.m.
Second.
Thank you, and that's seconded by Councillor Cartmel. Any questions on that? Seeing none, nobody wishing to speak, please vote.
We have all the votes.
Thank you. Please display the vote. And that is carried. No other notices of motion? Not seeing or hearing any. We are adjourned at 10:50. Thank you, everyone.